State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
Reading is feeding the mind. Feed the mind. Go to udarabooks.com. Udara Books, feeding the mind.
Professor Sola Adeyeye, it's good to have you on State Affairs.
Thank you very much.
This is a period of electioneering, and I've been reading your contribution to recent political development in Nigeria. You are an Oshibajo man, right?
Yes, I am.
You know, one would think, how did he move from being a Tinubu man to an Oshibajo man? What happened?
I am still a Tinubu man, even though some of his supporters will not believe that. I know Bola Tinubu's strength. I also know his weaknesses. All human beings have strengths and weaknesses. But in being, I believe, a colleague of Bola Tinubu, never at a time was he a presidential candidate. This is the first time that he has publicly come out to say he will be his presidential aspirant, along with many other people with whom I'm friends. I'm a friend of Kayode Fayemi, very good friend of Kayode Fayemi. I'm a friend of Ibikunle Amosun. We're not too close as friends, but we are very close as relatives because Ibikunle Amosun happens to be the uncle of my son-in-law. My eldest daughter is married to the Amosun family. So I have many friends who are competing for the presidency, including friends even within the PDP. In the end, in good conscience, I examined all the aspirants from my party, and again, in good conscience, I chose Yemi Oshibajo. I've heard people say, who did he tell? I won't name names, but everyone I ought to tell, I told where I will be, because for me, it's a matter of conscience. For me, it's a choice of what do I think is best for my country. For me, it's not about my person or what is best for Sola Adeyeye. For me, it's about what is best for my country. And every night when I go to bed, I feel good about myself.
Some would wonder, how will a Tinubu man say that Tinubu is not good enough for his country?
I am not saying that Tinubu is not good enough for my country. At no point has it been a choice of is Tinubu bad or good. It's a choice between many candidates. You know, in life, and that's the mistake people make in life, sometimes the good is the enemy of the best when it comes to making preferences. And all of us in life must do our best to settle for what we believe in good conscience to be the best. I happen to believe that Yemi Oshibajo is the best.
Professor Adeyeye, is this the fall of Tinubu's political empire?
I don't think so. You know, for me, honestly, Edmond, I feel sad when I see the level to which we reduce the game of politics. First and foremost, it ought not to be about personal ambition per se. It ought to be what is in the best interest of the country. For me, as a Yoruba man, I feel insulted when people say only one man can protect Yoruba interests. Awolowo Obafemi Awolowo, in my opinion, is the greatest politician of my lifetime that Nigeria has produced. He died. Nigeria did not die. Yoruba nation did not die. Life continues. So it's not about ending the empire of one person. If it is an empire, quite frankly, then it ought to end. Because human society should not be reduced to the empire of one man. If it is an empire, it ought to die. Because throughout history, all empires ultimately die, especially empires that are built to foster just the interest of one person. Is this the end of Bola Tinubu politically? I don't believe so. Honestly, I pray that Yemi Osinbajo will win. I have no guarantee that he will win. I'm just acting in good conscience. If Yemi Osinbajo wins, praise the Lord. If Kayode Fayemi wins, praise the Lord. If anybody should be angry at me for not supporting him, it should be Kayode Fayemi. Kayode Fayemi has slept on the same bed many times. Kayode Fayemi and I traveled around the world many times. Kayode Fayemi and I ate from the same soup many times. So, but if I could go to Kayode and I could say, look, Aburomi, you know I love you. But in my heart of hearts, I believe for where we are right now, the vice president is our better option. Not only for the victory of the party, is our better option, also in terms of experience. And I said, look, if I were Yemi Osinbajo and I become president, this is the post I will offer you. So if I could tell that to Kayode Fayemi, for heaven's sake, why won't I be able to tell that to anybody? I'll tell you one thing. Of all the people who have ever contested for office in Nigeria and who have ever aspired to the office of president, the closest person to me was the late Bola Ige. Bola Ige and I will argue. Sometimes he will win. Sometimes I will win. Even when I win, sometimes Bola Ige will come back to my position and say, Aburomi, let me look at what you are saying again. Oh. When he wanted to be president, I actually advised him that I didn't want him to contest. I told him so because I didn't think he would win. He was confident that he will win. And I said, you know me, oh. If you want to run, I will support you all the way. Even if that support will cost me my life, I will support you. In the end, he did not even get the nomination of my party at that time. So that's the way life is. What all of us must do is be honest with ourselves as to what's the motive. In my heart of heart, I have no malice whatsoever towards Bola Tinubu, honestly. But the truth is, if about 9-10 people want to have one office, a choice has to be made. That is what I have made.
Professor Adeyeye, you spoke to Fayemi, your friend, and you explained your position.
Yes.
Did you speak to your leader, Tinubu, to explain your position?
No, I did not. And I will tell you why. Fayemi called me to say he wanted to run. In fact, before he called me, I went to him. I said, look, Fayemi, I'm hearing these things. Do you want to run? And he said, look, I've not made up my mind, but have you seen any politician at my level who have a chance to serve his country at the highest level and he will shy away from it? I said, okay. Before you decide, let's look at the options. And I told him that whether you like it or not, we've heard that Bola Tinubu wants to run. We've heard that naturally you expect that Osinbajo wants to run. And I'm close to a few of them. And I said, look, I've also heard that these and these people want to run. And I said, look, based on all this I'm hearing, I gave you my advice. Now I'll tell you why I didn't call Bola Tinubu. Bola Tinubu and I were in his bedroom. He told me that he would not run. In fact, the day he told me he would not run, we hugged each other And he told me the reason why he would not run. And I said, you're a man. And I said, may God sustain you to do what you say you will do for the reason for not running. I will never disclose to anybody what he told me.
You don't want to disclose the reasons?
Let me tell you, there are some things that must die inside you until you die. I was talking with Chief Anthony Enaro one day. And when Enaro was in the MPN, we were in the UPN. I came from the US in 1983. And I was, three or four went to Benin to go and get Enaro for Papao. And when they came back, the two of them talked and talked. It was as if they had never parted. Chief Enaro and I were very close. So one day, I asked him, Papa, what is all these things between you and Awo? He told me the story of what happened in Western region. He told me the story of what happened when they were in the cabinet. He told me the story of how gradually they began to drift apart. I was a sad man. And I said to him, Papa, why don't you write this thing so that the world might know that this is really what happened? And I smiled. He said, Shola, I must never write it. Some things must die inside a man. He said, look, one, if I was to write it, I should have written it when Awolowo was alive. That way, nobody will say I was lying against a man who could not rise to defend himself. He said, two, I could not have written it when the man was alive because he was my leader. I loved him. He loved me. And he said, when you people came in 83 to say my leader wanted to see me, I got up and I drove with you back to see leader. And it was as if we have never parted. Let me tell you, I sometimes feel sad that I had to say anything negative about Bola Tinubu. Not because I've said anything negative that is wrong about him or that is incorrect. No, absolutely no. But even on account of friendship, on account of what we have shared in the past, for me it's pain that I have to say that. But it is his own supporters who carry on with an arrogance, with a sense of entitlement, with a sense of putting Bola Tinubu on a pedestal where they are treating him as God. At that point, you must say enough is enough. Personally, in fact, when I went to two of my leaders in Osun State to say I was going with Oshibajo, I promised one of them that unless his own camp becomes so vicious that one must not be looking at them with a smile, I promised my leader that I will not say anything negative about Bola. But you know what happened? Day after day after day, they went to town with the most damaging, the most scathing, the most scurrilous, the most wicked, the most ungodly, the most satanic epithet against Yemi Oshibajo. For what? For wanting to aspire to the only office that is higher than the office he currently holds. I mean, that let me swallow my words. So when they pushed it to that point, and I realized that whether you like it or not, Bola Tinubu has enormous resources. He has a newspaper. Some of the best writers in Nigeria work for Bola Tinubu. He has a television station. I won't be surprised. I'm not sure about that if he has a radio station. So he has an apparatus within the media that could push his own agenda through the press. On account of that, he used to be governor. When he was governor, he had a rapid response squad with the likes of Tunji Bello, the likes of Dele Alake, fantastic writers. So he was able to face the press. And you could see the same tactics and strategy now being deployed, unfortunately, unfairly against Oshibajo. I mean, what's the nonsense about comparing him with Akintola? The history is not analogous at all. Awolowo and Akintola never competed for the same post. When Awolowo wanted to be premier, Akintola did not contest against him. When Awolowo wanted to be prime minister, Akintola did not contest against him. And in any case, to the great memory of Awo will not be one person who will say, because I want to contest from this office, no other person must contest. If you all respect him and you all say you don't want to contest, fair enough. But Awo would never have wanted to choke the political space to a point where you say only one Yoruba man is qualified to contest for one office. Where in the world do you do that?
Senator Adeyeye, you have raised some fundamental points. One, Tinubu told you clearly that he was not going to run for the office of the president.
Yes, and I will say this, just a minute. I will say this. He has the right to change his mind. Maybe he has other reasons, other considerations. Maybe other people prevail on him. He has his right. But I told you, he told me, in fact, the day he told me I was going to go to America that day, he gave me $5,000 that day in his room.
When was this? What year?
Oh, I was still in the Senate then, okay? So that's fair. And I know people are going to say, you see, now you are taking money from Bola Tinubu. Yes, I take money. I'm not the only one who takes money from him. When I buried my father, he gave me 5 million naira. I'm grateful to him. When he buried his mother, I gave him 2.5 million. It's not as much as he gave me, because I didn't have as much as he does. But that's the way the world works. You give, you take, you give, you take, you give, you take. That's what it is. So, but will I say, okay, because Bola Tinubu has given me money before, therefore, I should always do everything he wants. When I was going to the House of Rep, if you are talking of money, one of the greatest amount I got was in pounds from Kayode Fayemi. So if it is that because I've gotten money from you before, that's why I must also throw your life. Is that the way it goes? One of the greatest, in fact, almost all my posters were printed by Chief Sonny Odogo, the Hide of Alaba, who at that time was actually a member of the PDP Board of Trustees. A member of the PDP loved me, admired me sufficiently that when I was going to the House of Rep as a candidate from another party, Sonny Odogu printed my posters. So these things happen in life. You can't say because I had one benefit or the other from one man, therefore forever I'm beholden to that person, to the point of selling my conscience, to the point of not being able now to say, okay, this far we can go together, this far we must part ways. And I don't think Bola Tinubu and I have parted ways, because hopefully if he gets the ticket, I will wish him well. If he doesn't get the ticket, I will pray he doesn't leave my party, and I will pray he doesn't see me as an enemy. What is so sad are educated people who are behaving as if you disagree with somebody politically, you become enemies. How can that be so? Is that what democracy is?
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live. Stay tuned.
Reading is feeding the mind. Feed the mind. Go to udarabooks.com. Udara Books, feeding the mind.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live. Stay tuned.
Another
Yes.
point you raised is that some persons treat Tinubu as God. And the former governor of Osun State, Rauf Aregbesola, also made the same point. I don't understand. What are you driving at?
I'm not driving at anything. I'm telling you the truth. Let me tell you. If there's anybody who is guilty of treating Tinubu as God, it's Rauf. Because I've been at least 3 occasions where Rauf had misbehaved for no other reason than because of his loyalty to Bola Tinubu. I'll give you 2 examples. We had a meeting of Yorubas in Lagos. Sola, what is his name? The one who was our vice presidential candidate.
Fola
at one point, I
Adeyeye.
think to Atiku.
Fola Adeyeye.
Atiku or to the man, the FCC man. Yes, he used to be a banker. Yes. And the Meji Bankole was talking. I mean, Rauf blew his top. Why? Because the Meji said something that Rauf about Tinubu that Rauf did not like. Rauf was a governor. How do you lose your composure because somebody said something about Tinubu? Tinubu himself was in the audience. He wasn't defending. That's one. Another occasion, leaders of our party, we met in Awolowo's chamber. We met in the office of the Premier of Western Region. At that time, he was being occupied by my friend, Biola Ajumobi of blessed memory. And again, Amosun got there, and Amosun said some things about Tinubu. Tinubu was there. Tinubu kept quiet. All of us were there. Baba Kande was there. Oshoba was there, and the rest of us were there. And at the end of the day, before Amosun sat down, Rauf blew his head. And every time I said, look, my friend, you're not the only admirer of Tinubu who is there, but you are the only one who blows up every time that anybody says anything you don't like about Tinubu. Tinubu is a human being, great person, but the greatest of men is still a man. The greatest of men still has foibles. And of course, all you have to do is listen to his opponents to know the foibles of Bola Tinubu. So if you blow anyway, the point I'm saying is that Rauf himself is the creation of that. For example, this current spat between Rauf and Tinubu, I know the beginning of it. People like to shy away from it.
Please tell me.
I'll tell you. Isiaka Adeleke came to my office when he and I were in the Senate. He hadn't, of course, he was alive then. Dead men don't come to your office. And he said, look, Egbon, you people are planning to take the governorship from the West. If you do it, I assure you, we will destroy this party. And I said, Cherubawo, who told you this? Where did you hear that anybody is planning to take the governorship from the West? He said, look, I know you have the ears of Rauf. That's why I come to you. Please tell him that I am interested in being governor. That's Adeleke speaking now. He said, but I'm not saying they must pick me. He said, but if you don't pick somebody from the West, that is our Western Senatorial Zone, he said, look, we will scatter everything. No? So I begged him, especially by one place, we won't scatter everything. So I went to Rauf. I said, look, this is what Adeleke said, oh, we must be careful. Rauf said, no, nobody's thinking about that. Nobody is saying that. It's even too early to start talking about who will be governor and who will not be governor. Okay? After that, other people now began to come to me and say, we hear this is what you people are planning. So again, I went to Rauf. I said, look, this is what people told me, that this is what we are going to have. He said, look, our people, they like to lie. He said, if that's the intention of Ashiwaju, he would have told me. He said, if Asiwaju has such a plan, I know he will tell two people. I know he will tell Baba Kande, and I know he will tell me. I'm telling you, Egbon, he hasn't told me. So I said, but look, this thing is widespread. Everybody is saying it everywhere. Of course, Rauf is not the most patient of men. He blew up. Egbon, how can you believe liars? I'm telling you this. I said, okay, I blew up. Tori Olorun, ma binu. We let it go. And then some weeks passed by, and then the thing was persisting again. So again, I went to him. I said, look, I know you blow on me when I say this, but I must let you know. So I repeated the story that I'm told that Asiwaju wanted his brother or his cousin or his nephew, whatever they are, to be our governor. I said, let me tell you, Rauf is alive. I said, I am not opposed to Oyetola. I like Oyetola. Humble man, gentle, smart, and with considerable experience from the private sector. So I said, look, I'm not opposed to him. But if we are going to use him, we must begin to market him now, so that when the time comes, we don't have a crisis on our hands. And to market him, in my opinion, is you put him in places where he gets to be exposed to the movers and shakers of the system, those that you can call the establishment of our party. In any case, I said, let's not wait to the last moment, otherwise we'll have a crisis in our hands. This time, Rauf went to town. He was so angry at me. He said, I'm telling you, nobody can tell a lie against Asiwaju. Asiwaju doesn't have such a plan, doesn't have anything. So I said, okay, please, no matter what I hear again after this, I will never come to you again. So, no matter what I had, I never went to him again. One day I was in my house in Abuja. I didn't know he was in Abuja. He called. Egbon, where are you? I said, I'm in my house. He said, please come. I said, come where? He said, I'm in Abuja. I said, so you are in your house? Okay, I'm coming. So I went to him. I got to his house. He and I sat for 4 hours. I got there, and he said, you know what, Egbon? We have a job on our hand. I said, what job? He said, Asiwaju wants Oyetola to be governor. I said, how many times did I come to you and said, this is what I was hearing? Twice! Twice! You exploded on me. Twice! I was telling you that if this is what Asiwaju wants, let's start on the job. Look, in politics, among party faithfuls, if you put Oyetola in charge of distributing rice, distributing Christmas goodies and Ramadan goodies and Ileya goodies, within 2 cycles, he becomes the favorite of the party. That's what happened to Adeoti. They tried to keep Adeoti out of the government. They put him in charge of doing all the goodies. In the process, they made Adeoti extremely popular within the party. And the man, the technocrat that you were thinking, is running the government, nobody ever saw him enough to believe that he could look at their face. So by the time the election came, honestly, Adeoti had become the one controlling most of the apparatus and structure of the party. That's the truth. Mm. So when he now told me, I said, look, I'm not no good to be a part of this, because I've told you long ago, and I said, look, you people are doing a great disservice. You, Rauf, and Bola Tinubu, you have both done a great disservice against Oyetola. Because if you knew you were going to push him, we should have been doing this job long ago. Now you are pushed out to a point where the whole of it says he must be in the West. Ikire says must be in the West. Bongo says must be West. At this point now, you now want me to say, I said, look, I'm not going to be a part of it. Fortunately, I'm old enough to retire, so I'll leave all of you to face it. Rauf got up and said, Egbon, this is one time that I need you to be by my side. I'm begging you. I said, look, I will not yield to your plea. Go and tell Bola Tinubu that if we do it, we will be in trouble in Osun. I said, particularly because Chief B.C. Akande, the leader for all of us, went to the press and said, we will be just. The aspirant will come from the West. Later on, of course, for whatever reason, he also said, well, there's no zoning in democracy. And so we now found ourselves where an entire zone was against us, and the sympathizers from that zone were also against us. Many of them from my own senatorial zone, many from Rauf's senatorial zone, because they said, look, when it was your turn, Rauf, we stood by your people, we stood by your candidate. Now you don't want to stand by our own man. So I told him, I don't want to be a part of it. Anyway, Rauf begged and begged. I said, why don't you and I go and tell him that this thing will create trouble from us and we won't be able to manage it. Rauf said he had told him. I said, what did he tell you? Rauf said he told him that since you have been governor, have I ever asked you for anything? And he said, look, the truth is, the man had never asked him for anything. I said, yes. If I were in your shoes, I would say, Oga, you have never asked me for anything. But that which you are asking now is too late. I'm not able to do it. It's going to put us in trouble. And that's what happened. In the end, they now had to come and do some magic of inconclusive election. And they had to bring other people in to be their savior. Same people who faced Omowolare and were beaten flat down. Same people who contested against you and were beaten flat down. Same people who contest this time, they didn't come first, they didn't come second. They were a distant third. You now say, oh, these are the ones to save us now. Look, there's too much. Wherever you have error, wherever you have injustice, whether you like it or not, every evil contains deceit for his own destruction. I pray to God that time heals all wounds. I pray to God that this next election, I will do my best to make sure Oyetola wins. In my heart of heart, believe Oyetola is a good man. I believe he is a good governor. But I don't believe that the circumstances under which he came in was fair to him. And it wasn't created by him. I believe Bola Tinubu was guilty of that. But even more than Bola Tinubu, Rauf was guilty of that. Because if I were in his shoes, hell no, I would have said, Oga, you initiate. And by now, whatever anger that would have been generated at that time would have settled down. We would have won the election for whoever our man is. Maybe at that point, instead of Oyetola being governor now, maybe he will be the one who will be in the Senate, or maybe he will be the one who will be minister. Oyetola is a talented man, but the circumstances under which he came in were such that it engendered strife within the party. Okay. And part of that, quite frankly, was self-inflicted.
So how did that cause the trouble between Rauf and Tinubu?
Let me tell you, when it comes to Rauf and Tinubu, if you try to get between them, you'll be making a mistake. You know? Because I was at a meeting where Bola himself said, if he was sleeping and there's a knife in the hand of Rauf, nobody should wake him up because he knows that Rauf will not stab him. So whatever happens between them now, only the two of them know. I don't know what happens. In fact, I don't talk about either to the other because, as I told you, the kind of love and passion that Rauf had for Tinubu, only God knows what could have gone wrong between them. The only thing is, if Rauf felt that he had issues with the governor of Osun and expected that Asiwaju would be objective in looking at it, if he felt he wasn't objective, honestly, that's between them. I can't say this is what happened between them. But I've just told you the thing I experienced and, you know, how the genesis of this happened. And I told him, I said, okay, this is what Asiwaju wants? I said, tell him that I've committed to it. Tell him I will do my best. I spent more money on the election of Oyetola than I have ever spent on my own election. I repeat, on radio. I spent more money on the election of Oyetola than I've ever spent on the election of myself. And I'll say this further. Rauf was a governor for 8 years. In those 8 years, not once did I ask him for a contract. Not once did I ask him for a job for anybody, whether my relative or my friend. Because if I were in that position, the system I will put in place will not allow you to come to me to ask for a job or contract. There will be process. And if you can't go through the process, that's your tough luck.